maybe it's been a while since he's suffered a big drawback. I mean, I know he's made some investments that haven't panned out as well as others, but for him to just say tech is everything and it's going to lead us to a utopia seems to be missing a gigantic percentage of the rest of what goes on in the world around us.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Friday, October 20th installment of the Silicon Insider, the only uncensored look at life and business in Silicon Valley. My name is Mike Malone. I'm here with special contributor Scott Budman of NBC Bay Area. Our producer is Jordan Henderson. Our East Coast correspondent is Bob Grove. And our host is the Silicon Valley Business Journal, though we will have some added news next week's show. Okay, so Scott, a lot happened this week, but it strikes me in the long term, maybe the most consequential thing was the publication of a rather odd manifesto at the beginning of the week. Did you notice that manifesto? Did you receive it?
Now I'm curious, what manifesto?
Marc Andreessen.
Oh, that. Yes. Gosh, is that a manifesto? Did it rise to that?
It's actually called the Techno-Optimist Manifesto.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
I'm on Mark's mailing list, so I think I got it Sunday night or Monday morning. It's 5,000 words, and it's basically an actual manifesto because almost every paragraph begins with "We believe, we believe, we believe," and I don't know what to make of it. I've read some comments in Fortune and various websites saying that basically excoriating Mark for writing this and taking this position. I'm curious what you think. I mean, let's go through it first, and then we can take it apart. It starts off with quotes from it gives us a glimpse of what it's going to be like. It starts off with a weird collection of quotes and sources. One of them is from Walker Percy, the great novelist. Next one is from Marion Tupy from Cato, who wrote Superabundance, and one from Thomas Edison. Interesting troika there. And then it starts off, the very first official sentence of this manifesto is, "We are being lied to." And then there's a dozen entries. Well, I think that kind of refers to us among a lot of people. So I guess we're lying to the American populace about any threats from technology and all that. Then Mark's getting into a section called Truth. And the opening is, "Our civilization was built on technology. Our civilization is built on technology." And later he says, "We can advance to a far superior way of living and being." What do you think? I mean, Mark's kind of done a political shift kind of from the left to libertarian now, to a lot of his sources are conservative. He's kind of moving all over the place politically, but then he states that this is not a political document. We'll see. Okay, so after lies and truth, we get to markets. And the crucial thing is his belief, first of all, that technology can solve any problem if we put our minds to it, from pandemics to isolation to poverty, etc. But then he goes on and says the key is free markets. That's the other leg of the stool. Technology, basically risk-taking, and the markets and the market disciplines. And he calls up Hayek in support of his position. And then he calls up Adam Smith. So it's a very traditional view of what free markets work like. And my impression is he's in a profession right now, venture capitalists. I mean, he's a billionaire venture capitalist. He's kind of in a profession that is not really entirely free market oriented. So it makes me wonder exactly where he's coming from. He also brings up Milton Friedman. Okay. Now I'm sympathetic with some of his positions about the free market, but the assumption is that we can actually have a true free market with wide open competition. And yet almost everything he's ever been in is to capture a monopolistic position in that particular market, and then defend it. So, I'm not going to hold it against him entirely. I mean, he is coming out, he's making pretty bold statements here. I mean, people are going to be reading this for a long time. They may be holding it against for a long time, but it is a remarkable document. We haven't seen anything like this, I don't think, in the digital age regarding technology.
Right.
Okay.
Right. We haven't, because people are, and I don't want to say more careful than Andreessen, or more thoughtful. I mean, obviously, I've met Marc. He's a thoughtful guy. He's a smart guy. He's playing on a different plane here, and we're starting to see people, some of the tech billionaires. There's a tone deafness to saying we are the apex predator. If I'm not a billionaire, I don't have all that money. I don't feel like an apex predator. So I just don't quite get where he's getting at. And this,
that was a knock on him. And some of these sites said, when was the last time Marc met a poor person?
I read that. Yeah. And to have a fascination with these sort of dictatorial types, these controversial figures, we've seen that with a lot of these rich people. We've seen it with Elon Musk. We've seen it with Donald Trump. I didn't make a whole lot of this only because I think he's speaking to a very small number of people. I mean, the first few sentences you read this and you're like, this has nothing to do with me or my belief. Right. And he can say this. And part of the reason we haven't seen people publish this is because they don't have the security and safety net, et cetera, to do it. And he does, so he can.
Yeah, but I'll argue it does have a lot to do with this, because the people he's talking to are people that will seriously influence our lives, and they will influence Washington and legislation and all sorts of things, regulation. And he's talking to them. I mean, it's a glimpse into, Marc likes to stir things up. And he's one of the, I don't know about you, but I think he's one of the brightest human beings I've ever met. But he also is in a position now where he seems to think that he knows what to tell the world. And if anything, it's going to create enormous resistance, because reading this provides very little succor for average people. We're all worried about technology. And of course, well, let's go. He then brings together technology and capital, the markets, to create what he calls the techno-capital machine, which will bring prosperity to mankind. And, that argument's been made a lot. But crucial to this is his statement that we believe artificial intelligence is our alchemy, our philosopher's stone. In other words, AI will take us to a new level of human achievement and human prosperity. Yeah.
So let me stop you there to say that is tone deaf to the concerns about AI. It's not going to lead some people to human prosperity. It's going to lead some people to the unemployment line. And I say this as someone fascinated with AI as well, but you can be fascinated with it. And it's not my philosopher's stone. It's something with promise. It's also something that has already been proven to take away jobs. So yeah, that affects us. You can say, and I'll say that what you said was absolutely accurate and fair. What he says can affect a lot of us because he speaks to Washington and he speaks to tech leaders. But to say we're being lied to by those who would, I guess, criticize technology. Apparently, he's never been on Market Street when a couple of cruise cars just sort of stop traffic. Apparently, he's never seen facial recognition technology that targets minorities and people of color more than they do other people. And I just, that's not our philosopher's stone. That's something to overcome. That's something to, to be wary of. And so we're not lying when we point out that some of this stuff is potentially flawed. We're the ones actually telling the truth.
Yeah, and the timing is unbelievable, because this is a period when people are scared to death of AI. And all he's been essentially saying is, it seems like there's a philosophical division right now between people that are saying, even like Elon, who are saying, let's kind of pull back a little bit on this pace of change. And Andreessen's argument is, no, keep pushing ahead as hard as you can, because we'll emerge on the other side in a new world. Utopia, but something kind of like utopia, something on the path to a kind of utopia. That seems to be his philosophical bent.
Right. It's sort of another way of saying move fast and break things. It doesn't really matter if things crash and burn along the way, but even move fast and break things, which, came to us via Facebook, was amended because investors fled and customers were, leaving, and Facebook had big layoffs. And that was a breakneck pace of technology that led to people without jobs. It led to investors with less money. These are not philosopher's stone kind of things. These are real world kind of things. And so I admire what I've admired his career because he's taken many moonshots, and that's how we got like the browser, and that's how we got big investments, and that creates jobs. But I just, when I think of, AI as our philosopher's stone, I just, come on. I
should say the third leg of the stool is energy. And he says Nixon was right. We should have built 1,000 nuclear reactors around the country, and then we become fully energy independent. So that's the final step. And they said, put it all together, and we end up in an age of enormous abundance. Now, I'm hearing that from a lot of different people. That book I helped write was Salim Ismail about the exponential organization. He talks about we're heading into an era of superabundance where we can create everything, we'll have infinite power, etc. I keep hearing a lot of that, but in the quotidian reality of our lives, we're paying too much for gasoline, we're paying a lot for electricity. I don't see I see abundance, but I don't see superabundance. I mean, what he says, we're not at we cannot be, well, we won't reach utopia, but we'll get close enough. And he quotes Thomas Sowell and others regarding the danger of utopia, but he thinks we can find some kind of Elysian reality through technology. I don't know. We come a long ways, but it seems like we have an awful long ways to go in terms of the human condition. Moore's law has given us a lot of things, but has it made humanity better? Well, I think we're watching the news right now and not seeing much of that going on.
Right. And we have to remember, and this came up not long ago. Remember when in 2022, we were coming out of the lockdown and a lot of tech companies laid a lot of people off. And people were like, well, that's strange. We're seeing hundreds of thousands of tech layoffs, and yet the overall unemployment number isn't falling much, isn't going up that much. The jobless rate, and economists pointed out, well, tech, while a very important and, headline grabbing and sexy part of our economy, is a sliver of our economy. And so when you call tech, our utopia, our philosopher's stone, you're missing out on the great majority of jobs that people are concerned about, not to mention the great privacy concerns people are concerned about while doing those jobs that keep our economy afloat. And yes, I've made a living talking about tech, and it's very important to me as well. But part of what I think the responsible thing to do if you're talking about tech is to take it with a grain of salt and look at the potential drawbacks. And Andreessen, maybe it's been a while since he's suffered a big drawback. I mean, I know he's made some investments that haven't panned out as well as others, but for him to just say tech is everything and it's going to lead us to a utopia seems to be missing a gigantic percentage of the rest of what goes on in the world around us.
A final section. I don't know how chilling this is, but we believe that advancing technology is one of the most virtuous things you can do. Okay, I can kind of agree with that. I mean, we are surrounded by the modern technological world, the product of Moore's law, and it's extraordinary in many ways. But then he says, he entitles the section, Becoming Technological Supermen. And, every time I hear that Nietzschean Ubermensch phrase, it's time to start loading the Winchester. I mean, that's a frightening term. But he believes, I believe, in adventure, undertaking a hero's journey. Beauty only exists in struggle. Those are all fine things to say. But when you start talking about making men into gods, you're playing with fire.
Right. Nothing chilling about that. It's not like we, came up with an entire party that wanted to exterminate millions of people because they wanted to be Superman. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's crazy talk. And again, how are we going to become technological Supermen when so many people are just trying to do their jobs and make the rent or make their mortgage? And if we can do that on a larger level and house the homeless and clean the environment, yeah, we're going to move forward as a society. But with all of that in the background, who among us gets to be these supermen? I have a feeling it's a very small percentage.
Yeah. He finishes with, it's time to be a techno-optimist. I don't have an argument with that. And it's time to build. I don't have an argument with that. It's just the details seem a little cold-blooded for my taste. And then he lists the patron saints of techno-optimism. Very unusual group. He starts with Ada Lovelace and Adam Smith, Andy Warhol, Bertrand Russell.
The famous atheist,
yeah. And then some people we know. I mean, I actually, as growing up, I knew Buckminster Fuller. Odd guy. Techno-optimist, yeah, maybe. Clayton Christensen, these are guys we both know. He throws in Frederick Jackson Turner, suggesting that he wants the new frontier to be technology. Hayek, Nietzsche, George Gilder, Milton Friedman, Ray Kurzweil, Stephen Wolfram. I know all these guys. Stuart Brand, Virginia Postrel. Interesting people. They're all different kinds of people, though. I'm not quite sure why he created this list. Maybe it's our reading assignment or something, but it's a very odd creation, and the motives I'm not quite sure about. I mean, is he fear like we're all turning our backs on technology, and he's got to be the Pied Piper, turning us back around and facing the glorious future? Is that why?
That's different than saying we're being lied to by those who would be careful and cautious about technology. It's not turning our backs. It's saying, essentially, what I want, what I like, what I'm investing in is good. And if you disagree with me, you're lying. Where have we heard that before? That's kind of what we're starting to see when the press calls you out for anything. Oh, I'm being lied about. And it's just, it's not going to stop, obviously. There's no specific silver bullet for that. But we need to keep doing our jobs, and we need to keep covering technology, not venerating technology, but covering it and being a little bit skeptical. And that's not lying to people. That's the opposite of lying to people.
It's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. We have a constitutional duty to do this. And I do think, though, it's a compelling glimpse into where the heads of some of the most powerful people in the technology world are going. And we should be prepared for it.
Yeah, that's a good warning, I think. It's not, but right, because you're right in that these people do affect our lives and our jobs and the economy. You're right. But we also need to call them out on these things. And that's why, I read the manifesto and was just a few clicks away from all the articles saying, what in the world? He's saying that the press that helped make him is now, by doing the same thing, covering him, lying to us because we're not just, venerating him. And I don't know. I think there is a big difference between, actual journalism and just PR. And he seems to be asking for the latter.
Well, I'll say this, having known Mark since he was in his 20s, he's a ballsy guy for even doing this. I mean, he's going to take a lot of slings and arrows.
Right. And to his credit, he clearly doesn't mind that. And it may be because of his position in life and the money he has, or just whatever. But, there's part of me that says, hey, it's good that these people are letting us know how they really feel and who they really admire, because we need to be wary of that. But it's also a little disconcerting.
Yes, we'll leave it at that. Okay, real quick before we run out of time, we spent a lot on this, but I thought it was important. Tesla saw a 44% decline in the third quarter net income, and Elon's expressed a lot of concern about the year ahead, saying that price cuts could hurt the company's profitability. The big thing, though, was in his inimitable way, he also noted that the Cybertruck, which we've been talking about for what, 3 years, is going to, supposed to start shipping to customers in November. Well, it turns out it's a production nightmare, and it's complex to build and is facing cost overruns. And he gave us a great quote: "We dug our own grave with the Cybertruck," unquote. Great line. Not sure you're supposed to say that if you want to not affect the markets.
He said it before, he said it about especially the Model X, talking about how complicated that was. And I believe he might have said we dug our own grave with that. And it was a successful car. It didn't sell a ton, but it's a high priced one that led to the Model 3, which also was going to ruin the company. And it turned out to be a smash hit, which led to the Model Y, which is another gigantic hit. The Cybertruck at least has a lot of pre-orders. It always remains to be seen whether Musk will deliver anything remotely on time. But if you are playing the long game, look at Tesla. It is putting EVs on the road like we've never seen before. I mean, they pulled it off. It is making investors rich to a scale that very few companies in history have. And again, now it's going to put some trucks on the road in various numbers.
But this is why when you go in and interview a CEO of a big company, there's always a PR person sitting right there telling them to shut up before they have the trading suspended on the stock for saying something dumb. Maybe Elon's now invulnerable to that. He can say anything he wants and everybody goes, oh, that's Elon.
Okay, but he's not invulnerable. Remember, after the earning report, Tesla stock kind of tanked. So he lost billions of dollars in value. I was at a book thing just last night. Taylor Lorenz, the Washington Post reporter, wrote an excellent book. I recommend it. Extremely Online is what it's called. And it's interesting in meeting and talking to a lot of techies and VCs. And some of them said, how is Elon Musk getting away with this and saying the things he said? And I said, look, as someone who constantly has to go through PR, this is what happens when you get rid of your entire PR team, both for Tesla and Twitter.
Fire the flack, and that's what happens.
It's on your mind, and you say, oh, this is breaking the back of the company. Certainly investors don't want to hear that, but there is something sort of refreshing, I guess, about that honesty coming from a CEO. But at the same time, it cost his company billions of dollars in stock market value. So go figure.
Billion here, billion there.
I guess PR is there for a reason.
Yeah. Okay, real quick. The Chief Information Security Officer of the Office of Management and Budget says he's going to try to slow down the shift to AI among government agencies until they can understand the risk. So there's a glimpse of how the world's starting to feel about AI. The government's beginning to go, whoa, wait a minute. We're not going to adopt this stuff until we have, supposedly in November, they're going to come out by the end of the year. They're going to come out with standards. We'll see. Amazon's going to overhaul its warehouses, starting the process, going fully robotic, run by AI. It's like an AI day today. They says it'll increase the speed of their deliveries. But you can't, when you read, you can't help thinking about all that labor organizing and all those restive employees out there at Amazon. I think this is how a lot of companies are going to fix their labor problems. And I think Amazon's got the perfect place to do it with a giant warehouses where they can just put in robots.
Right. And I've been in those warehouses. They have a ton of robots running around, and this will be some sort of robot / sociological experiment to see, because if we all start getting the wrong shampoo or the wrong book, then it will prove that we're not quite ready for the machines to take over. On the other hand, if everything works and goes faster, we've got to start rethinking some of the skills that we take as humans. Yeah.
Okay, Netflix. Netflix, it did that whole movement to initiative to end what do you call it? Password sharing. And the result was the revenues went way up, their subscriptions went way up, because apparently I think a lot of us thought that, well, if they get rid of password sharing, a lot of people are just going to say, well, I'm not going to pay Netflix. I used to get it for free. I'm done. Apparently, they all signed up. So Netflix is really happy. And to celebrate, they decided to raise the price of their basic plan from $9.99 to $11.99. That's called maybe spiking the football a little too hard, don't you think?
In a way, yeah, but let me point out, and you have brought this up on your show a lot. Streaming is really expensive.
Yeah.
And no matter the size of the company, if you're not Netflix, it's hard. It's been hard to make money, right? And Netflix is just showing that there's something about being the OG. They really know what they're doing. And every time they seem to take a step back and everyone says, well, this is the death of Netflix, they somehow come back stronger. And, as we speak, their stock price closed on a day up something like $50. It is just a monster when it comes to success. And they're just firing once again on all cylinders. And I'm sure there will be some step backs and the pundits will say, well, Netflix is done. But everybody is still trying to catch up with them. And yeah, if they charge more, they make more. And if they put that into new content, people are going to line up and queue up and sign up.
Yeah, and they have an inelastic demand curve too. I mean, you can actually raise your prices and get more customers. That's mind-boggling. Put that on top of already being a monster. Now you have Frankenstein. I mean, nothing's going to stop Netflix now.
There was something interesting on, say, if you were watching, let's say, CNBC on Wednesday, Tesla came in a little low on its numbers, but in the name of lowering prices and putting more EVs on the road. And I think that's fantastic. And they're playing the long game, clearly. They want more cars out there. They want to make EVs an established thing. Netflix is saying, okay, everybody's streaming already. Here's how we take the high road. And I even mean the high-priced road. And You're right. People are just jumping on board that train, and it's really, really successful.
And they also announced this week they're going to take a lot of their TV shows and turn them into video games and offer video games on TVs and your computer.
They've wanted to get into video games for a long time, and I'd be curious how that looks and if it works, because again, what makes Netflix special in the streaming world is it was so early and it's had so much time to make mistakes and correct them and do all that. Do they take on the Microsofts and the Activisions and the EAs?
Well, I think you do if you own Squid Game, among other things.
Maybe so.
Yeah,
We'll see. You're right.
Okay. Real quick, NVIDIA is partnered with Foxconn. They're going to start building a new class of data centers to power, once again, AI services. NVIDIA is they're starting to expand now. They're starting to go horizontal. And finally, the Sam Bankman-Fried trial, former FTX executive Nishad Singh testified that FTX actually stole funds from its clients to help make those huge political donations. So this trial is getting more interesting as we go along. It sounds like they're already starting to put up the cinder blocks for Sam Bankman-Fried's cell. It just has that feeling at this point.
Yeah, I mean, every day it's clear that literally everybody in the company is testifying against him, and I'm curious, A, what the defense will be, and B, does he take the stand as part of that defense? Because if he doesn't, and they can't come back with something strong, I mean, it is a snowball that's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like that.
Yeah, he's not just getting thrown under the bus; he's getting thrown under a freight train at this point.
Yeah, it reminds me of that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where Indiana Jones is being chased by that giant round thing, and it's just getting closer and closer and bigger and bigger. And that's everybody that's ever worked at FTX just mowing him down every day in court.
Okay, well, that's it for now, folks. You can find us on the Silicon Valley Business Journal homepage, as well as on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Have a great weekend, and next week, you'll see some big changes here. Bye-bye.